You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 160. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from EduCalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
Hello there and welcome. We are so excited to have you here with us today. So have you been maybe looking for books to help you teach social emotional skills in your classroom? In this episode of the Balanced Educator Podcast, we've invited fourth grade teacher Andrea Burns to share her list of the best books to read with your students to support social emotional development. Andrea is extremely passionate about all things bookish. This includes children's literature, the smell of a brand new book, or adding new picture and chapter books to her already full bookshelf. Andrea is also passionate about social emotional learning. She's an author and has a children's book coming out that is SEL related. Andrea lives in Kansas. She's a teacher and has a Master's of Science in Curriculum and Instruction. She loves helping other educators implement SEL into their classroom. So in this episode, Andrea is also going to share her method for incorporating SEL and mindfulness in her classroom and the planning strategy that she uses to connect the books she chooses with the learning outcomes and standards in her curriculum. So you're going to leave this episode with ideas, resources, and strategies that you can start using in your K-12 classroom right away to help your students develop their social emotional skills. But first, we're excited to share this week's sponsor.
Did you know that Canadian educators are highly sought after by top international schools worldwide? Teaching overseas is professionally rewarding and offers an amazing lifestyle rich with culture, social, and travel experiences. Search Associates is the world's largest recruiting agency representing over 800 top international schools in over 120 countries worldwide. Each year, they've helped over 3,000 teachers, counselors, librarians, and specialists secure great jobs in their carefully vetted K-12 international schools, where teachers like you can enjoy small class sizes, motivated students, and high academic standards in a supportive learning environment. Gary McPhee brings over 30 years of teaching and administrative experience in international schools to his role as a senior associate with Search. He started his teaching career in Toronto in 1982 and ventured on his first overseas post in 1988. His international teaching career has taken him and his family to Singapore, Taiwan, Tanzania, Qatar, Canada, and China, first as a teacher, then principal, and international recruiter. He now shares his passion for international teaching with other adventurous educators. If you're interested in learning more on how to become an international educator, join Search Associates' free Facebook group at Search Associates Canada and visit ca.searchassociates.com or email Gary at gmcphee@searchassociates.com. That's GMACPHIE@searchassociates.com. Check out this episode's show notes for the details. Register with Search Associates Canada and receive personalized advice and support throughout your international job search. Adventure awaits. Take the first step. Contact them today.
All right, now let's get into the interview with Andrea Burns. Hi there, Andrea. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
So we're really excited to have you today because this is a topic we've been wanting to cover for a while. So we're so excited to go over it with you. We're going to be talking about SEL books to use in the classroom to support our SEL teaching, to support students, to support teachers. So very excited to get into this. Can you start off by introducing yourself to our audience and letting us know, how did life lead you to where you are today?
Absolutely. So like she said, I'm Andrea Burns of Bookish Burns. I have 3 S's in there. It's very fancy if you're ever looking me up. But anyways, I live in Kansas City. I have a husband of, I think we're coming up on 3 years now, and a beautiful Labrador dog. So he's wonderful. And this is my 8th year teaching. I teach 4th grade. And wow, SEL is something that I'm very passionate about. And it kind of took a while to lead me to it. But once I figured out how much it helps me and my students, I just figured I'm never going to stop. So one of the things growing up is I had a very loving family, very supportive, and I actually did have some mental health situations within my family. So it started there where my parents, we talked about it. It was really good. It's back when, it was kind of not a topic of conversation, but I think it's really important that even back then, my parents, discussed it with me and whatnot, but there was no books out there for what I was going through and my feelings and emotions. So that was the first thing when I started hearing about SEL, I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have had that as a kid to kind of connect to the characters, because it's so important for our kids to see themselves in books. And so that's kind of where it started. And then once I went to my school, is very a different background from where I grew up from. So I would say just learning about these kids and their emotions and their needs and everything like that was very eye-opening. But I figured, this is my purpose and this is why I'm here. And so one thing that I'm very passionate about is literature. And when I found that the two go together, it was just like a magical match. And I have learned that it has helped my students so much. And I could go on for days talking about it. So that's kind of my background story of where it came from and why I love it so much.
I love that. So you've said a couple times that it's helped your students so much. I'd love to know, kind of what was the before in your classroom? What were you seeing the problems before? And what was the transformation that you started seeing in your students once you started using these SEL books and focusing on SEL in your classroom?
Absolutely. So actually, before I started using books, I noticed just a lot of outbursts and anger and a lot of emotions, just heightened emotions, and kids did not know how to handle it. I felt like their emotions were too big for their body. So I was like, how can I take their emotions and let them know that A, they're not alone, and B, how can we teach them the strategies and skills that they need to be able to handle what's going on in their life? So yes, I'm not a licensed, counselor, psychologist. So I thought, how can I use my tools and strategies to help these kids? So whipped out the books and started doing a lot of research and finding similar characteristics of what I see in characters and what I see in my classroom. So if I saw a child having, an outburst of anger, or if I felt like maybe they just couldn't control their emotions that day, or maybe they had a fight with a friend, I found books that were relating to that situation going on. So honestly, going to the library, looking up things online, checking Instagram. I started there. And so then I started slowly making my book collection, and it's incredible how many books there are out there for this. And even picking topics for today to discuss took me hours because there were just so many good books out there. So I noticed that once I started reading my kids during our interactive read aloud time, it's like the quietest time of the day, which I think is crazy. Like kids, as much as they say they don't like reading, they crave that time because I think, don't want to, especially the older kids, they don't want to admit that they see themselves in these characters, but I know they do. And it's kind of a way to get to them without directly speaking to them. So for example, if I'm having girl drama in my classroom, or if I see a friend maybe being left out during recess, I grab a book. We kind of talk about it as a class. We do so many discussion questions, and that's the whole point of this, is just to have really good conversation with our kids. And I think that one of the things that just makes my heart light up is when a kid who doesn't really speak too much speaks up about how they feel about it. And then all of a sudden their peers are helping them work through it. I've done that in this situation. And the conversation that not only sparks with me and my students, but between the students based off of what's happening in the book is incredible. So that is just what I've seen is a lot of collaborativeness in my classroom. And obviously building relationships with your students is so important. And I noticed that you can also build relationships through discussing what's happening in these books.
Totally. I love how that discussion can really open things up for students and create those connections that allow some students to be there to support and make connections with kids that maybe they hadn't before or that they didn't really understand before, and giving them that safe space to discuss and come together and talk about this topic that probably lots of them have experienced, but in slightly different ways. It really brings the community together and like strengthens that bond within the classroom between the teacher and the students, because you get to understand them more when you can have the chance to hear what's going on in their head or the experiences they've had. And then between the students, they get the chance to understand each other more as well. That's so great. So can we get into the nitty gritty of like, what does this routine look like in your classroom? Like, how exactly are you using these books? What does it look like from start to finish?
Well, at least in the United States, we follow the Common Core standards. And so one of the things that I've noticed is we are always backwards planning. We're always looking at the standard that we're going to teach, and we always base our lessons off of that. And I thought, why the heck can't I do that with SEL? So what I've started doing is where I live in Kansas actually has SEL standards. And it's based on the grade level. So there's 3rd through 5th grade standards that I specifically look at since I teach 4th grade. And I thought, how can I backwards plan and find books to base off my lessons off of the standard? And how can I relate it and incorporate it into what's actually going on and what situations I'm actually seeing in the classroom? So that's kind of how I find the book is I base it off a standard and base it off real life situations of what is happening. So that's kind of the first thing I do is kind of figure out the topic that I want to teach. And one thing I started doing is actually showcasing the standard in my classroom, because I figure we do that with academics. It's just as important to showcase it with social emotional learning. So, I've had people ask me, do you tell your students directly what you want them to learn? And I'm like, yes, I do, because sometimes it's important for them to say, all right, we are going to be discussing this. And I want to see if you can kind of figure out how they solve this in the story or how they handle this certain emotion within the story. And so I really think it's important to showcase that. We usually do this during my literacy block, because I know a lot of people say, how do you have time to do this? And that is such a valid point. Us teachers, we do not have enough time in the day. And so incorporating it into your literacy block and your interactive read aloud is one thing that I try to do at least once or twice a week. Making sure also that I read the story beforehand. I know a lot of teachers, like I said, don't have time, and we just, whip out a book and we read, and you don't realize that there's so many good discussion points that you might miss because you weren't prepared. So reading it beforehand, grabbing a thing of sticky notes and just writing down discussion questions. And I just stick them on which pages I'm going to stop and discuss them within the story. So that's kind of how we do our routine. And then, like I just discussed earlier, I have prompts and question prompts that we'll either journal about or write about after the story, or we'll have a class discussion to build that classroom community. So overall, that's how I plan. It really is that easy. And you just have to put in a little time and effort with reading the story ahead of time and just looking at some of the standards ahead of time too.
I love that. And a lot of the times we can feel like, as you said, there's no time for SEL, there's no time for these things, but there's so many ways that it can connect to the curriculum that we have to teach. We just have to take the time to kind of be a little bit creative or look at our curriculum in a different way. And, what is it that we need to be covering throughout the year, and how do we connect that with these SEL concepts or ideas that we want to touch on with our students. So yes, a little bit of forward planning, but then, you can keep using that year after year. It's just like anything that we do in the classroom. Making that plan takes a little bit more time, but then you can reuse it, and it kind of sets the bar sets the foundation for the following years. And I would imagine too, since you've been like doing this for a little while, that you just start to know your library of books. And so you can see, and also within a grade, oftentimes it's the same typical types of issues that come up in regards to social emotional learning and the things that kids at that age struggle with and what they need to learn. So maybe you might use these books, I would imagine, in a different order throughout the year, depending on your group, but you're probably using most of the same books, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, you see, like you said, I'm laughing because every year, the same time of year, the same exact type of different emotions I see from kids come out. And it's hilarious. Like you're like, oh, it's April. This is going to happen 100%. So yes, I definitely have a collection that I keep, and I am a booked addict. So yes, I'm constantly adding to my library, but yes, overall, I definitely do that. And I like what you said earlier too, about you can still incorporate SEL. Sorry, I'm going backwards because you had such a good point. Into your curriculum. And one way I do that is, I know in fourth grade, we teach point of view. And so it's like, you can say, how would the character feel from this point of view? Or how would you feel if you were in their shoes? So like, even as a writing activity, or even as a journal, or even an opinion piece, you can do so much. Like you said, you just got to get creative with it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love that. It's so great. And even, I mean, my background is mostly teaching math and science. And like, even in math and science, I found ways to incorporate SEL where it wasn't just an extra thing. It was, and this is in high school too, I would find ways to incorporate it into the curriculum and the standards that I had to teach. There was always ways to incorporate these SEL times. And it doesn't have to be this giant thing, like you're reading to them anyway. Why not use a book that focuses on SEL? You're not losing time that way.
No. And think about in math, like how much you have to have a growth mindset. If you don't get a problem, you can't just give up. You have to keep going. So, and I know there are so many math books out there, like math picture books, and I'm sure there's chapter books as well that you could use, even for something as simple as that, because kids like to give up. If they don't get the answer the first time, they're just done. And so it's like, nope, you got to have that growth mindset and find another way to solve the problem.
Yeah, totally. And I would also say, like, for teachers that teach older grades, don't be afraid to read picture books to your older students.
100%,
like
yes.
We do not outgrow the joy that comes from listening to our teacher read us a picture book. Like, it just brings back good memories. I, as an adult, still like reading picture books. Like, don't be afraid to incorporate that. What a great activity that your students get to look forward to. And then you're creating this classroom atmosphere and community that's exciting for them, interesting for them. And they get to do things that are different.
Absolutely. And I know if I were a high schooler, I'd be like you said, it's just nostalgia. Like, just, it's bringing you back to your youth, and it's just something that they probably wouldn't do on their own. So I think that would be an amazing idea.
Yeah, definitely. So this plan that you do, like this, thank you for sharing that. So clear. I'd love to know now, like, what are some specific books that you would recommend? You've done so much research, which is awesome. You've built a great list. So we're going to steal that from you.
Yes,
because that's what we need to do as teachers, right? No need to reinvent the wheel. You need to find someone that's already figured it out and then start from there.
Exactly. So I know that there are so many topics with SEL, so many. And so I kind of narrowed it down to mindfulness, emotions, self-awareness, the 5 senses incorporated using mindfulness, and then kindness and compassion, and growth mindset, and self-confidence and focus. So what I'm going to do is kind of go through these different topics and pick 1 to 2 books and kind of explain why I picked them, because like I said, there were so many, and how I would use it in my classroom.
Awesome.
So the first thing I'm going to talk about is mindfulness. And I have found that it's so important to have mindfulness in the classroom. We do a mindful minute every single day. My kids depend on it. Yes, at first they were a little silly about it, but it's like, once they realize that this is our daily routine and we take this seriously and we're resetting our day, they want to do it every day now. So, and I kind of had to use books to introduce what mindfulness is, because not a lot of kids know or understand it. So one of the books that I did was Alpha Breaths. And so this has playful breathing exercises that go with each letter of the alphabet. So, I mean, you could use this in younger grades or in intermediate grades. or even like you said in high school, it literally breaks down how to do different mindful breathing exercises. And so it's just a great introduction to mindfulness and breath awareness, and the illustrations are really breathtaking. So that's the first one.
Amazing.
And then
I'm just going to jump in and point out to our listeners. So for those of you that are using our Educom SEL and mindfulness program in your classroom, these categories that you're talking about today actually align with the themes within our program. So all of these, for those of you that are using the program, you're going to be like, oh, great, I can use this book when I'm doing this unit in Educom. For those of you that might not have an Educom membership yet, go check it out. We have a free trial. Go to educom.com/free. You can try out the program for free, see if it's the right fit for you. And then if it is, then you have a program that's going to give you these daily mindfulness audios for every day of the school year. And then you can pair that learning with these great books. So yes, it's kind of, we're offering a super resource right now to our listeners. All the things for SEL.
I love that I can help in some way.
So great.
I know. And I practice mindfulness every day too. Before I go to sleep, like I have to put on my app and I listen to calm noises, and it puts me to sleep every single time. I love it. So then another mindfulness book that I picked is called 10 Beautiful Things. And it's about a girl named Lily, and her grandma suggests that she finds 10 beautiful things on this road trip that they're on together. So Lily finds more and more things to appreciate along the way. So this journey just encourages her to open her eyes to the world around her. And she starts appreciating things like the birds, the windmills, the gurgly sounds of the melting creek. It's very descriptive, and it can really help your students kind of imagine those things that can bring mindfulness and peace to their mind. So I really enjoy those two books.
I love that.
Yeah. Then I know emotions, like I talked about, are huge. And if you follow Albert Whitman, the publishing company, they have a whole series. It's called the Great Big Feelings series. And they are so cool. They have way past sad, way past worried, way past jealous, way past mad. I mean, all the emotions that you can think of, they have a story for it. So it's a story where the kids kind of take the emotion of what they're going through, and it kind of goes through the kiddo's day and explains how the child deals with that, a situation with whatever emotion they're dealing with. So you can find all different types of emotions just through that one series. And I adore using those. So
it sounds like it would be a great series to have in your classroom library as well, that students would be able, or a calm corner that students could go read the story themselves. Use that as a tool to help them work through whatever they're going through. That's great.
Exactly. And I just got 2 new ones in the mail too. And I mean, they're just going to keep coming out with them with all the different emotions. We have way past lonely and way past afraid that I just got. So, I mean, they're so cool that we are getting more and more of these as time goes on.
Awesome.
So with self-awareness, I chose a couple different ones. One was a graphic novel, because I know that so many kids are into graphic novels these days. And a lot of kids, it's the gateway to get them to reading chapter books. So I think graphic novels are so important in the classroom. So the one that I chose for self-awareness is called Nat Enough. So it's where the main character, Natalie, is constantly feeling like she is not enough. If Natalie can focus on who she is rather than who she isn't, then she might realize that she's enough just the way she is. So it's all about her finding herself and her thinking that she's not good enough for certain things. So I have that, and it's a series too. And my students love those as well.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I got goosebumps hearing that, because I feel that adults of our generation, it's that is such a core problem that we experience as we become, especially earlier in our careers, as teachers, for sure, that problem of feeling like I'm not doing enough, I'm not giving enough, I'm not enough. That's so prevalent. So to be able to share this with our students at a young age and teach them that they don't need to grow up feeling that way is just, that is awesome.
Isn't that wonderful? I know. And whenever a new one comes out in the series, my students, I mean, they're begging to read them because they're quirky and fun too, but they have such good themes surrounding them. So That's a great one. And then one that I am just like showcasing all over my social media right now is called Happy Right Now. And I adore this book because I'm trying to be more self-aware of living in the present moment. Like that is something I'm personally working on. So like I connect so well with this book. See, adults can connect with picture books too. I just love it.
Totally.
So it shows kids how to embrace things as they are. So if you're not feeling good, at least you can be in a cozy bed for a nice nap. Or if it's raining outside, you can go and play in the puddles. So it teaches kids how you can choose to be happy. And it teaches kids how to slow down and breathe, how to help a friend and feel thankful, and just using those moments, even when you're feeling down. Like it's okay to not feel happy all the time, but if we can help others when we're down, it's going to make us feel good about ourselves and really enjoy the present moment with what we have. So I really enjoyed that book too. And then this one that I found that relates to mindfulness using the 5 senses. Oh my goodness. It's called Sometimes When I'm Sad. And it's all about when you're sad. And I can't even believe it because in the back, it has the 5 senses and it explains in depth what to do when you're sad and how to use those 5 senses. So for example,
amazing.
It's an amazing book. So for example, with sight, it talks about how sun and natural light reduces sadness. And it even gives specific examples like include color into your environment, rotate your color so the environment doesn't get stale. And you could use this at home. You could use it in your classroom. And it's like, I didn't even think about those things. Like I keep all my different bright colors up in my classroom all year long. And I'm like, I should probably switch those around because, it does get a little stale and kids need that sight and, for their own mindfulness. So, and it really does help the classroom environment. So I'm even learning things.
That's so cool.
I know. Oh, it's the best book. And I just found this. It's amazing. So with the smell, it talks about opening windows to allow fresh air to circulate. And it says when doing that, it brings negative ions into the room, which can help reduce sadness. And it also says use aromatherapy, using essential oils, etc. I mean, they give such specific details that I'm like, I'm going to do this in my own house and in my own classroom. Like,
yeah, totally.
And then for hearing, it talks about listening to relaxing sounds that produces theta waves. So brain waves that can bring a state of calm and peace. Listening to ocean sounds or light rain will always help you kind of calm down in that moment. And then with taste, it talks about teaching our kids how to embrace flavors and textures. So experiencing the crunch of a carrot or the warmth of hot cocoa, like really taking in the mindfulness even while you eat. And then for touch, they talked about holding a pet, the softness of a blanket, a hug from a trusted adult, just so many different ideas this book has. Like I was in awe when I saw it. So that one is called Sometimes When I'm Sad.
That's amazing. That's going to be such a great resource a book to go with our mindfulness in the 5 senses unit in our EduCom program, because it just matches up so well with what students will be learning from listening to the audios and some of the activities we have in there as well. It's going to be they were made for each other, these 2 resources.
I know. And I'm like, do they have more? Like, I need to find more from this series. It's really good. Kindness and compassion. So one of the books that I love is called Will You Be the I in Kind? It's from National Center for Youth Issues. And it's just a simplistic book that gives kids ideas of how they can show and bring kindness wherever they go. So how they can be the I in kind. And it gives really specific examples for kids and what they can do to be kind. And I just feel like that's so important right now because a lot of the times kids think that they should get something for being kind. And it's like, no, what can you do just to be kind? And so it gives really concrete examples for that.
That's so great.
So good. And then another
I feel like,
Go ahead.
To touch on that point, the kindness idea and that was one of the big reasons that we included the kindness and compassion unit in EduCom is, especially in those middle years, I feel that there's kind of this mentality a lot of the times because they're developmentally, they become very self-absorbed at that age. And that's just normal. That's just how their brain is growing at that time. So a lot of the times when there's conflict in in the classroom, the students will express that like, well, I'm not going to be nice to them until they're nice to me. Or, well, why should I do something for them if they haven't done something for me first? So it's kind of this me first mentality, and training them and teaching them that actually, if you are kind of the instigator of the kindness, if you get that ball rolling with the kindness, then you're going to see so much more kindness come back to you, just because it's, if you start it, if you are the first domino that gets it going, then it just cascades, and you are going to feel more kindness in your life coming back to you if you intentionally put kindness out there. So that sounds like a really great book to like drive that idea home.
And I always tell my students, I know this is like such a famous quote, but it really does cost nothing to be kind.
Yes.
Open the door for someone, say hello, how are you today? Like, it's just the simple things that we need to teach our kids. Just that makes the world a better place. So
totally.
Another one I chose was The Potato Chip Champ. And it's a book about two boys who are completely different. So this would be a good one for point of view and for doing an opinion piece too, as well. So Champ has everything he could ever want and even more. And Walter, has very little, but he still always has a smile on his face. So Champ learns how to show kindness and compassion towards Walter based on a situation that happens in the story. So it's a really good friendship book, and just kind of thinking about, you don't always know what's going on with someone. And I always tell my kiddos that we don't know if maybe someone last night didn't have dinner, or maybe someone lost their dog yesterday. Like, we truly don't know what's going on in other people's lives. So just always show kindness and compassion. So it really touches on that as well.
Yeah.
And then the next one, I'm so passionate about growth mindset, because I noticed that in my classroom and with a lot of kids is we just give up. We do one thing, we don't do it right, we just give up, we're done. And so that is just something that I am truly working on with my students. So one of the books I chose is called My Day is Ruined. And it's a story where a boy is put in situations where he has to learn how to think flexibly. So it teaches kids techniques for thinking flexibly about a situation when things don't go your way. So these techniques include breathing and realizing that sometimes things are not in our control, and sometimes we have to change our plan and just accept it for what it is. So it's a really good story, and it gives like very specific steps on how to think flexibly, and our kids need those specific steps.
I love that. Yeah, we have 2 units on growth mindset in the EduCom program because, as you said, it's so important. Like, students need to learn in order to be good learners. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to be okay with making mistakes. You have to be okay with things not going as planned. And that's really a skill that has to be learned over time. Like, that does not come naturally to most people. We want to be perfect right away. We don't want to, and that's so like instinctive to being a human. You don't want to make mistakes because you don't want to be judged badly by your peers, because that community is so important for humans. Being part of society is so important in our survival. Right. So it's just so ingrained in us to not want to mess up. So if we can teach students from a young age that like, it's okay to make mistakes, but the idea is that we need to actively choose to learn from those mistakes and then decide, where do we go from here? So it's when we make a mistake, it's not that we are bad or we aren't smart or we are a problem. It's that, here's an opportunity to be flexible, try something new, try a different strategy. And that's the important part of learning. It's not getting the proper result at the end necessarily. It's that process that gets you there.
Right. Sometimes things have to get messy before they get good.
Yes,
and kids have to learn that. So the next topic is self-confidence. And one book I chose is called There's No Dream Too Tall. And I thought this book was so important because it teaches kids that they have freedom in deciding what they want to do in their life. So I know a lot of times, kids find their niche or things that they love to do, but a lot of things are persuaded by their parents or outside peers. And so just talks about like, it gives the kids the idea that they need to have self-confidence within themselves, that they have what it takes to reach their dreams and aspirations on their own without anyone else's help. So I think it's really important. And I see that a lot of the time is a lot of kids get persuaded by their peers. And I know they're young, but it's, it happens throughout middle school, high school. And, oh, my friend's doing this, so I need to be doing this, and it's just, no, find what works for you and have that self-confidence that you would be good at it. So I really enjoy that book.
Sounds really empowering.
Yes. And then the last topic we have is focus. And I adore this book. You can use it for so many different things, but it's called Catching Thoughts. And a girl has unwelcome thoughts and she can't shake them. So it kind of relates back to like anxiety, depression, when you have those thoughts looming over your head. So it teaches kids how to acknowledge the unwanted thoughts, how to show them compassion, and then actively let them go. So kids really have to focus on this and learn how to do it. So a lot of visualization is used when you're reading the book with kids. And that is something I'm even working on as an adult, is like taking, the fear of something, taking it, accepting it, and then pushing it aside so that you don't let it kind of take over what's going on in your head. So teaching them that at a young age, and the way that it's written is so incredible. Like, I would highly recommend that book.
That's so great. And I think that's something that kind of people in general are just still kind of learning about how to process emotions, because for a long, long time, and even still, a lot of times it's recommended to just kind of ignore your emotions. If you're scared, ignore that fear. If you're worried, ignore that. If you have kind of intrusive thoughts, just ignore them. But really, in order to manage those emotions, we have to first acknowledge them and accept that they're there and be like, oh, okay, this is what's coming up for me. And then, okay, now what strategies can I use to manage this or look at it in a different way or grow from it? So I love that it kind of teaches that process of recognizing the emotion and then working through it. That's so great.
Absolutely. So that is all I have. I have more. I could go on for days, but I'm so excited that I can at least share this list with your listeners so that they can check them out too. And I will even put them on my Amazon affiliate on there. I will have like a little area that you can kind of check out all the books in one spot if you want to buy them.
Perfect. So yeah, we will link this list in our show notes. So for our listeners, go to educalm.com/TBE160. So that's educalme.com/TBE as in the Balanced Educator 160. And the list, all the books that we talked about today will be there. And also links to be able to connect with anything that we talked about today. So this is such a great resource for teachers to listen to this podcast so that they can get all these wonderful ideas you've shared today. How can our listeners connect with you later? Because you share great resources all the time, so they should be following you.
Oh, thank you. So pretty much I'm getting on the TikTok train right now, and I'm still Bookish Burns on TikTok. So I share a lot of books there. And then my main page is my Instagram at Bookish Burns with 3 S's. And then you can also find me on my website at readbookishburns.com. And coming soon is going to be a book written by me. And of course, it's SEL related. So I can't wait to share that with the world and for you guys to read it as well.
Awesome. And we will link all of those in our show notes as well. So if they forget those Instagram or TikTok or website handles, it will all be linked. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I appreciate it a lot. This was a really fun chat, and I think our listeners are going to get so much out of this episode.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that it will be useful for you in your classroom and in your SEL adventures. Just a reminder that everything that we talked about in today's episode is going to be in the show notes, and you can find that on our website at educalm.com/TBE160. So educalm is spelled EDUCALME.com/TBE as in the Balanced Educator 160. All right. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We appreciate you and all the awesomeness you are bringing into your classroom and into the world. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone that you think would get value from it too. Have an awesome day.